Hey fellows, you may be color grading your videos or images, but there's one simple tool that Filmora editors have not been using for quite some time. So in this video, I'm going to explain it, the histogram. So what is histogram? So this is a visual graph that displays the pixel value of a frame, enabling the analysis of brightness, contrast levels, and color balance of an image. Or in simple terms, this is a graphical representation of a tonal range or a tonal distribution in digital image. Or in more simpler terms, this is just a graphical way to interpret the tonal range of your image or your video. So listen to this guys, I would like you to pay more attention to this because this video is more like a masterclass or a lecture and less of editing of motion graphics and stuff like that. So you better pay more attention to this one because it is going to help you improve your editing skills and to be more specific on color grading. Now, I made a full guide video to color grade in Wondershare Filmora and you guys commented positively on that. So my first lines in that video were, or my main emphasis was, you must be able to recognize what's the problem with the image, what's the problem with that video, what's the lacking, what is it lacking. Before you attempt to bring your color grading, before you attempt to bring up a solution, you must recognize the problem first. You must be able to detect what is wrong with that image. Now, regarding that fact, I realized that sometimes we take longer time to learn color grading because sometimes we ignore the very tools that help us in the process. And in that, I have realized the need or the real reason why I have to explain this histogram and why I must let you know how does it help you in the whole process. Okay, now firstly, let us see where do you find it in Wondershare Filmora. When you drag down your image or a video in your timeline, you see this icon right here. When you click it, you start to see your histogram right here and you can still drag it around and place it where you can see it the way you want. And on the image, it's the same thing. And when you want to remove it, it's just simple again. You just have to select this icon right here again and it disappears. Now I'm going to use this image right here. It's actually from another software, but I'll use it in this example and let you get the picture right. So explaining straight from the left side, this first part right here is the blacks, representing the dark pixels of your image. And when you move to the right, to this portion right here, it's actually representing the shadows. Right on the mid right here is most definitely the mid-tones. And right here near to the right side is the highlights. And here far to the right is actually the whites. The histogram that we have in Wondershare Filmora does not have the divider, the faint dividers which must be seen behind, but we are actually expecting that in the future upgrades. Now let us take a look on this image right here. So when you look here, you find out that this image was shot actually on a daylight, and because of that, we don't have some darkest pixels like the blacks. We don't have the too much black portions, and because of that, we are not expecting our histogram to show up something on the far left right here because we don't have the blacks in our image. And from that very fact that this image was shot on a daylight, we're expecting something on the far right of the histogram showing or representing the whites, like these portions right here, this one right here, as well as over here. And at the same time, we also expect to see the highlights considerably, as well as the mid-tones. And also at the same time, we have the head portion right here, or the hair, which is actually dark, like they are bringing some shadows, and also this portion right here. So we are expecting some shadows to rise up. Now let us turn on our histogram and see how does this reflect. So here it is, nothing on the far left right here, which is the darkest part, and the recent shadows, some mid-tones right here, the recent highlights, as well as the whites on the far right here. Now let us get another example right here before we see which must be a perfect histogram. So we have this guy right here on our second example. So when you look here, you find out that we have some highlights right on this portion right here, which are being represented by the histogram over here. And we also have the normal and considerable something on the mid-tones as well as on the shadows. Now I'd like to use this second example guys to bring the lesson even closer, to bring a practical example and nail this in your mind and make sure that you have understand. Now let us use the color wheels. When you raise up the highlights over here, you find out that the histogram pushes to the far right, which actually represents the whites as well as the highlights. And the main reason for this is when you raise up the highlights, it automatically brightens up the white spots of your image. And as a result, the histogram's far right white spots portions will be filled up. And now when you pull down the highlights, the image becomes underexposed, making the histogram push to the left. And as you can see, there's nothing right here on the highlights as well as the portion of the whites. Now it's almost the same thing when you are taking this example from the midtones. When you raise up the midtones right here, you find out that the image becomes washed off or like less contrast, and this is taking away all the black portions from this image. And the histogram is going to report the same thing to us, that the black portions and the shadows over here are reduced. And again, when you reduce the midtones, more contrast, more blacks, and the histogram goes to the far left. Now the same format continues to the shadows. You drop them, less light, more contrast, and the histogram leans left. Now the best time, the best moment for you to use this information, it is that time when you want to grade up something, you want color graded image or something else, but you are failing to recognize which is the problem here, what's really lacking in this image. The histogram is going to interpret for you. If the image is blown out, if it is too dark, you will be able to see everything right here. And of course, that has got something to do with knowing which is the perfect histogram. So let us have some information on that. Now, as a general idea, the perfect histogram must not be touching the edges. It mustn't have the filling up on the edges in this way. It must be like a mountain. And I'm sure you've heard this several times. And that is the reason why I say it in general terms, generally speaking. But when it comes to advanced terms, the correct answer is we don't have a perfect histogram. There isn't a perfect histogram. Okay, let us take a look on this histogram right here. So when you check this histogram here, you are probably expecting the improper image, the imbalancing image, the bad image actually, because this histogram right here does not match or does not fit the perfect histogram as we have mentioned earlier. But you wait until you see the image. Okay, here is the image. Now you find out that this image was actually shot at night, and it is even a great image as it is like this. And because it was shot at night, there wasn't sunlight to bring some reflection and to raise up some highlights. And that is the main reason why the histogram pushes to the far left. So the histogram is actually interpreting what's being shown by your image. Now here's the second histogram right here that we want to take as an example. When you look at it, just like the previous histogram, this is also not fitting or not matching with the perfect histogram as we have said earlier. But as opposite to the previous one, this is leaning far to the far right, which means it's raised in highlights and the whites. And when you look on this histogram only by looking, you are expecting an image which is actually blown out, which is, you are not expecting a right image from this histogram. You are actually expecting a wrong and a badly overexposed image. But let us look on the image right here. So when you see it, you realize why the histogram is raising the highlights as well as the whites. This man have got the sun behind him, and the sun is actually bringing more light, bringing more highlights to the image. But actually, when you look on the image is actually correct, is right as it is in this way. Most especially when you are looking from the perspective of trying to tell a story or trying to convey a certain mood, that histogram remains correct, remains perfect, as much as that image is perfect in its way of conveying that particular mood or in its way of telling that particular story. Well guys, so the main issue right here, which was the main purpose of me creating this video, is for you to be able to read, to interpret this histogram, and I'm actually believing that you are now able to do that if you didn't skip some parts of this video. Now this is how the histogram is going to help you. If you can only understand and be able to read it, to interpret it. For example, when you see a histogram like this on your video and you're trying to understand how can you solve it, most likely or possibly, you have to consider the darkest pixels of that video. Or if it is the other way around, then you must consider the highlights of that video. And this little knowledge of histogram is going to play a big role in your journey of doing the color grading by helping you with the fault finding. Actually, this video was made with much effort, guys, of trying to gather and convey this whole information and give it to you as pure as it can be. And if you can appreciate that, just leave a like, subscribe, and share to your friend who may need this same help as you have had. And if you didn't see the full color grading guide, you can check this video right here.